right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's so great to see so many faces here. This is awesome. We're here for the Future of Housing and Air. I'm Janet Providakis. I'll be the moderator for tonight. And with that, we're going to be looking at, I'm glad you guys all did the housing perspective with your dots and everything. This way here we get an idea of what people are looking for neighborhoods, for types of houses and such. And with that, I'm just going to hopefully continue this on. All right, give you an idea of what your agenda says with the, like I say, with doing the dots. Then we're going to go ahead and give you an introduction to the Ayer Affordable Housing Committee, as well as the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust. We're going to review the 2010-2020 census data, especially of Ayer, and we're going to look at the local residential overview of real estate market. Going to look at the sustainable development principles. Then we're going to do something great. We loved doing this the last time when we had our pizza party and the housing gathering, the forum, where we break out in a little session, and there's 4 questions on your agenda. I hope everybody has a copy of the agenda, and those are the questions that members of the committee and the trust will go ahead and have you sit, talk about them. You've got like about maybe 5 minutes per question. And then we're going to get back together again and review them. So what ends up happening with that is we found out a lot of things at the last time. Our last session that we did for this was back in 2019. So when you're looking at the next slides and everything else, this all happened within those years from now, 2019 to now, and even with something called COVID in between. So with that, I think we did pretty good. And then afterwards, we've got our panel of experts. So I noticed that we didn't have any questions on the sheets in the back there, so make sure if you have questions that you get to go ahead and ask our experts. All right, I know you can't see this, all right, I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and give you an idea that the Affordable Housing Committee members, again, I happen to be the chair of that committee. With that, I also wrote down on here, and this is going to be available on the website. So just to give you an idea that this town really has, and I'm not just, just saying this, but the team members that are on this committee are on so many other committees and boards, associations, commissions, all right? So I happen to be part of the Ayer Housing Authority, where I'm a commissioner, got voted in. So thank you very much for that. I happen to be the chair of APAC, which thank you for being here as well to go ahead and get that all filmed up. And the Cable Advisory Board, so if you've got a question with regards to Comcast, don't ask me now. And then Insurance Advisory Group and Master Plan for the Housing. But we also have Ken Diskin, who's on the Planning Board, as well as the Energy Commission, the Senior Center for, going ahead and looking for new places for the Senior Center, Land Search and Building. James Stephen, who happens to be also on the committee, and the Ayer Housing Trust, as well as Capital Planning Commissioner of Trust Funds. It's awesome, good. Ron Morrison, who is also on the Master Plan Housing with me, and Dave Sieber, Dave, so I was in the back row, Commission on Disabilities. We also need additional volunteers because we have really one now opening for an alternate because we also got approved with Jane Morris as one of our alternates. The committee itself wants to keep diversity within the town. With that, when we look at the housing complexes, we know we need affordable housing. We know, again, we don't want to lose that diversity. And you need all types of styles of houses. So with that, this is one thing that we are looking at to continue. So one of the things that we looked at is we couldn't, in town, create an affordable housing trust. This is one of the things that we accomplished. We had to go ahead and develop the bylaws as well as get that committee together. And I'll go ahead and let the chairman of the trust talk about that. We did the Ayer housing production plan. The copy of that plan is available right on our website. It was great because we got feedback from individuals, you know, from surveys and such, to see what we want to go ahead and do. We've been reaching out to profit and nonprofit developers. We have a nonprofit developer here to talk about the Ayer Commons project. NOAA is the name of the company. I was going to say Phil, I was around here somewhere. I saw him. There you go. All right. And then what we've been doing is researching properties so that we can make additional affordable housing projects. Whether they're going to be rental, owned, that's what we're here for. Let's talk about it, right? So I'm going to now turn this over to Jeff Tillotson, who will take it from here for being the trust.
Thank you, Janet. I'm going to try and do it faster than Janice did because, I want to get people involved in doing what we're going to do this evening. I'm currently on the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm the planning board appointee to the trust. Joining me on the trust, James Stephen, is the appointee from the Affordable Housing Committee. We've got Sean Copeland, who is the current representative from the Select Board on the Housing Trust. Colleen Krieger is unfortunately not able to join us this evening. Pat Bagney-Latimer, you all said hi to her before she had to go off and do something this evening. Cindy Lavin, who we all know and love. Cindy back here is on the committee, and it currently says volunteer needed, but we've had a gentleman step forward that we hope will be approved by the Board of Selectmen at their first meeting in November. So currently we have a full slate at the table, but if you have a few minutes, we meet about once a month. And the trust has been doing some pretty interesting stuff. The purpose of the trust, I'm going to read this because, go back if you don't mind, is to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in Ayer, for the benefit of low and moderate income households, and for the funding of community housing. We currently have a rental assistance program in place, which helps 10 families with up to $6,000, I'm getting the math right, $6,000 per year per family for rental assistance. And it's been working out real well. Alicia Hershey's, who works with us in community development, carries all the water and chops all the wood. And she has started with 5 families, 10. We're hoping to expand to 12 with an article on the upcoming warrant. We're also looking at housing development opportunities. Thank you, if you don't mind. Now, come on. So, in the 3 years we've been doing the Ayer Rental Assistance Program, ARAP, we started with 5 families and a budget of $30,000. We now have 10 families and a budget of $60,000, and hopefully going to 12 families at a budget of $72,000. We're also going to be asking at the town meeting to start funding a separate account for us so that we can start looking at purchasing housing and housing opportunities going forward. Any questions about the trust? I think that's it, Janet, right? Told you I'd be quick. Thank you.
Because again, we want to go ahead and get your feedback, all right? So with that, I'm going to go now and turn it over to Alicia, who's going to go and give us a little breakdown about the demographics. Let me see if I can change this on. Okay, great. You can X out of this one. And then this one. Okay. Slideshow. No. From the beginning. Yeah. No, present. No, from the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm always get nervous when I have to talk in front of people, so Sorry, I always get nervous when I have to talk in front of people, so please bear with me. So I want to just start with our mission statement, because this is a place that I always find is a good place to come and remember what we did. And this is just the first two sentences of our mission statement, but it says, and can people read it? It says, Ayer's place as the Great Junction endows the community with its heritage, people, businesses, neighborhoods, natural and cultural resources. These assets provide the framework for Ayer to be a diverse and inclusive community, welcoming people to live, learn, work, and connect. And whenever we go out and have these type of programs, people come to us and say they want diversity, they want people, they want what Ayer has always been. And because of the military base, it has always been, well, it has been a diverse, and even the railroad before that, it has always been a very diverse community. And people have moved here for that reason, and they want it to stay for that reason. Next slide, thanks. So I like numbers, and so I'm just doing a few demographics. And the population over the past 10 years to 2020, because I'm using the census, Massachusetts went up 7.4%. That's about 500,000 people that it grew by in that 10 years. Ayer grew by 1,052, and that's 14.6%. That's one of the highest growths in the Commonwealth. Harvard grew by 5%. Harvard grew by 331 people. Groton grew 6.28%, and they grew 669 people. Littleton, like Ayer, is really working to bring development into their town, and they grew 13.64%, and they actually grew, they're a bigger town, 1,217 people. Shirley, which really surprised me because they have done some developments, only grew 3.5%. But that growth means that Ayer is a place that people want to move to, with the business and development of Devens as a, economic and industrial and technical. I'm not thinking of the right word, but so much is happening on Devens that it's bringing people, and also the railroad that takes you into Boston. We're really the edge of the Cambridge district, Boston-Cambridge district. Okay, the next one. So I want to remind people what low income is. And low income is, our federal poverty rate right now is $14,580 per person per year. So that is, if that's what, to qualify, you need to be in federal poverty rate. Massachusetts' extremely low income rate, because we're a very expensive community to live in, is $26,400, and that kind of qualifies like the federal poverty rate, okay? We're in the Ayer, Boston, Cambridge, Quincy income district. So this is all for one individual. So extremely low rate for us, that's the Massachusetts extremely low rate. For Ayer, it's $31,150, and that's representing the fact that it's expensive to live here. Buying and renting homes is expensive. It's not as expensive as Boston, but it's still expensive. Our low income rate is $51,950, and that's for a family of one. Okay, and our moderate income rate is $82,950. Now, when you talk about these rates, so we talk about poverty, low, extremely low, low, moderate, but there's also another one that I haven't put in here because they didn't have the numbers for it, but it's the workforce rate, which is 110% of the area median income. And I don't know, I think this just puts it in perspective for how many people really are possibly struggling a little bit because it's expensive to live, and these are what is how you, so many of our community live within these income rates is what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. Next slide. So here, these are the household incomes. And I broke this down. First, I want to show you something. We have 0 to 14,999, so just under 15,000. 5.3% of Ayer is in the poverty rate, the federal poverty rate. Of that 5.3%, 13.6% of all seniors in Ayer are in the federal poverty rate. So it helps us to understand that there's a lot of people in our community struggling. When I broke this into, I'm going to put this here. I broke this into a grid. So this is everybody from 74, actually 82, but this is how my numbers broke out. 38%, 0.8, almost 39, almost 40% of our residents fall in moderate to low income. So when we talk about building moderate to low income, we're talking about building housing for 40% of our residents. It's not those people, it's us people. So now another 10%, so we get to 50%, is 70 to 99,000, and that would qualify with workforce housing and moderate housing income. So 50% of our residents in town actually qualify for many of our programs and fall in, we're talking about building housing or keeping opportunities for 50% of our community. The interesting thing here is, and I'm going to show it as we go, I think I've had enough to show it, but with what we've built in the last 10 years, it's been a lot of single-family large homes. And we want those people too. We want a diverse community. We're not saying we don't want everyone, we do. But you can see that everyone from 100 to over 200,000, 50% fall in that category. So it just gives you an idea of who we're talking about. We're talking about everyone. So, next slide. So here, this is a housing stock comparison by type, and it's hard to see, but I compared all the towns that border us. And the reason Ayer is so diverse, this is Groton, Littleton, sorry, I keep touching it. So this is Groton, Littleton, Harvard, Shirley, and Ayer at the bottom. And Ayer has the most diverse housing, and this is why we are a diverse community. Because when you create diverse housing, you create opportunity for lots of people, all different types of people to live. So, okay, so the dark red is single-family detached. I'm trying to fit, the orange, sorry. The yellow is single-family attached, so that's accessory apartment. The next light blue is 2 apartments, 2 families. Then you've got 3 to 4 families in a darker blue, 5 to 9 families in a darker blue, and then 10 families in the very dark blue, and the mobile homes in the gray. And I can put this up on the website too, because I think this is a really interesting slide. So, and it came out of Mass Housing Partnership has done some really good number crunching and come up with this data. And so, but this is what we're talking about doing, making sure that we're creating housing for everybody and all different types of housing. Okay, next slide. So this is the annual housing units permitted by types in Ayer. Okay, and this is over 20 years. And we had we had a number of, this is probably the Willows in here, because those units were 2 and 3 family buildings as they went in. So when you see the 2005, 2006, 2007, that was probably, and the Willows was a 40B development, and you're seeing that development here. But much of our diverse housing was built before 2000. And you're really seeing that we're not building that much right now. And the interesting thing is that dark blue right there, that everybody didn't like on our pages, is Central Ave, those condos on Central Ave. So I'm just saying, it does fit for everything. There's a home for everyone. Yeah, so anyway, so next slide. This is my last slide. And this is, once again, a reinforcement of the fact that diverse housing creates a diverse community. And this is a comparison of Ayer and Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the white, Ayer is the yellow. And 10 or more units, we're way behind the state on that. Mobile homes, we're behind the state on that. And that's the question of, one of the things we're going to talk about is, are you interested in mobile homes? Are you interested in tiny homes? What are you interested in seeing, and what do you think we need? 5 to 9 units, we're way past what the state has. 3 to 4 units, we're a little bit short. We're right on the number. Then 2 families, we're a little bit higher than the state. Single family, attached, that's accessory units, we're much higher than the state. And we're right on the numbers with the state for single-family detached, single-family standalone units. So that's just, does anybody have any questions about these? We don't want to spend too much time. I'll put this up on the website if people are interested, or if they want to just contact me. Yeah?
The Massachusetts comparison, is that on average across the state?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Is Alan next?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no,
are you
he's
going to
not.
do?
Oh, no, he's not. Ron is.
Ron's
Ron's
next.
next. I realize that.
This is one of our Affordable Housing Committee members. He's also a local realtor for many years, and he always comes in with wonderful data for us about what's happening in the real estate market. Do you want to stand behind the podium? Is that easier for you?
They won't see me behind the podium.
Whatever you want. Can I help you with anything?
No, I'm fine. I'll just use my third arm. I'm okay. I was a teacher for 30 years, so I'm used to diversity and adversity, mostly adversity. Nothing like teaching 13-year-olders, I know, tough age. Now I'm teaching 60-year-olders and wishing I had 13-year-olders. I brought about an hour and a half worth of information, and I have 5 minutes to present it, so I'll go real fast, hopefully. What I did to begin, my task was to give you an overview of the Ayer market, not just today, but where it's come from. So I went back to where our records began, at least for our company, which is, by the way, we're right here in the center. And we have we're beneficiaries of the fact that we're the only company in town. So that's why I got the job tonight. There was no one else to ask. 1995 was the first year that we have records for Ayer. And if you look at this front page, which is inside this brochure, I'll read across the first row and then you can figure out the rest, but it's good to know what each heading is and how we handled each of the columns. There were 23 transactions. Now these are multiple listing transactions, which was the easiest information that I had to gather. And that's about 90% of the transactions in town. Only about 10% are handled in town without an agent. So all of the 90% of the transactions are handled by an agent, whether it be our company or a company from out of town. There were 23 sales in 1995. And when you look at there's a highlighted number on each column, and they represent the high and the low point of that column, so that you don't have to research the whole column to look at the span that we have. 23 sales, and the DTO, realtors have great, abbreviations. That's days to offer. How long did it take to get an offer? So in 1995, it took 102 days on average for someone to come along and make an offer on a property. And the sold price, I didn't bother with the asking, the sold price for all of those 23 on average was $131,000 and change. And that is the lowest price in since 1995 to today. That was the low point right at the very beginning. The lowest price in town, and these are single-family homes, was $48,000. And the highest price in town was $232,500. And I think if you look at the current highest price, I think it's $902,000. So there's been a slight increase. It's certainly better than having your money in the local bank. I don't think you'd earn that amount of money in that amount of years. And then the price range, that represents 75%. The price range column represents 75% of all of the sales. Where did they fall? What price range did they fall in? And so 75% of those 23 sales fell between $50,000 and $199,900. So there were none really that were, for the most part, over the 200. The majority were under 200. In the next column, the percentage year over year, what was the increase from the previous year? Well, obviously this is the beginning, so it's 0. But if you look at 1996, prices went up, the sales prices went up 0.2%, so that's not much. But as you go down that year over year column, you'll see some years were quite good. For instance, in 2002, it shows 23.4% increase over 2001. So that means if you bought a house in 2001 for $100,000, you could sell it the next year for $123,400. So you would make $23,400 on your purchase if you just held the house for 1 year. And so that's how you would read. I do need that third arm. That's how you would read that year over year figure on the way down. Now you notice there were some years where there were negatives. And most of the negative numbers occurred from 2006 down through 2012. Those years, for the most part, you lost money if you bought a house and tried to get rid of it the next year. And if you held on to it, you lost a considerable amount of money. So housing is good long term, but you can buy at the wrong time and sell at the wrong time. And you can lose some money buying houses. It's not all on the positive end. Any questions on this map, or chart, I should say? Third on, flip the page. If you look at the last year, the figures for 2023 are not complete, obviously. It's only through today. This chart was made this morning. And your price is now 607,000 is the average. So someone walks in the door of the office, they're looking for a single-family home, then the average that they're going to be having to afford is 607,000. Okay? So that's how you would, you can see the increase is dramatic over the years. It also means that the people coming in to the town are not the people, they don't have the same profile as the existing population. And if you go back to I've been doing this for over 30 years, and at one point we had 15 offices, 400 agents. So we had a really nice look at the greater Lowell area, if you will. And when you look at places like Chelmsford and Westford, they've gone through that cycle. Ayer is kind of just starting that cycle. And I can see it from my experience that Ayer is changing. And there's no really stopping it. But what you need to do in order to keep as much of the flavor of the town that it has now is to figure out, and there are ways, of bringing the prices down by subsidizing, there's going to have to be really quite a bit of government subsidy. I can't see where it's going to come from other than that, to tell you the truth. So that is something that each town goes through. And so what happens when the town changes that way, your services have to come in because as the economy or the economic background of the profile of the buyers in a town come into the town, those people have different expectations as to what they expect in a town. So I think if you look at Ayer in maybe 10 years, you're going to see Westford. And the average price today, if our office was in Westford and somebody walked in and wanted a 4-bedroom colonial, is $1.39 million. When our office left Westford, the average was in the 500s, and that was not that long ago. So the same house in Ayer is $800,000. So there's quite a difference just by going across the line. And so people who are buying million-dollar houses are going to want different kinds of schools because their kids are going to go to different kinds of colleges. I tend to tell it just as it is. That's what's happening. And one way of slowing that down is to do something about the prices of the houses. Pretty obvious, at least to a real estate agent. As you go to the next page, I think it's this one. That one, I said, well, what do you have? Do you have this one? All right, let's go to this one, and then we'll go to that last one. Okay. What I did here was I broke down the same statistics, if you will, into 100,000 blocks. And the interesting thing here, it shows how much was the price that the property sold for on average over the asking. And as you can see, every single, these are 2023 figures, 1 year or almost a year. And the figures, look at the over the asking price on the 902,000 house. The person who bought that house bid $127,000 over the asking price. That's unheard of. That's how much competition there is in the $900,000 bracket. So money's not the issue for people coming into the town. At least it doesn't look like it. And that was a 2,300 square foot house. The town assesses it for taxes for only $567,000. Now, if they tax them at $902,000, their tax bill would be $934 a month. The payment on that house is $5,000. The tax and the mortgage payment with 20% down is $5,045, but you put in the taxes and you're up to almost $6,000 a month. The very least that a buyer can get into the town at the moment is about $2,000 a month. That would cover mortgage and taxes. And then the last page is a list of rentals. Affordable housing doesn't mean just houses to buy. It also means houses to rent. And so what I did here was I went back a year and a half and listed every single rental which went through a broker in town to give you an idea of where the rental prices are. And so on the high end in Ayer, we're at about $2,000, $2,100, $2,200 in that range. That would get you a 2 to 3 bedroom, sometimes a house or a townhouse type situation. Now keep in mind, we're in the Boston Census section for things like Section 8. So a Section 8 person, a person who's on a rental subsidy, they can get a voucher for up to $2,400 a month in order to live in Ayer. And so we do see people with the maximum voucher getting rentals in Ayer. So the Section 8 can still fit themselves into Ayer. And as you know, about 40% of the population is on Section 8 that rents. Sounds like a high figure, and it is. And so when someone comes into our office, for the most part, we're not thinking, how much money do they make? The first thing we want to know is, do they have any kind of subsidy? Because that makes a difference as to what we can show them. And about 70% of the people who walk into the office have subsidies. And they have to have it, otherwise they couldn't live here. Otherwise they're living outside of Gardner someplace, and pretty soon probably in Albany, New York, quite frankly. Okay, so I don't want to take up the whole night, but that's a day and a half worth of stats in what, 5 minutes? It was 5 minutes, wasn't it?
You got it. That's what I want to trip you. All right, Ron, thank you very much. And I think as he, mentions, we want to go ahead and make sure that we still have the diversity, and we are moving our way out of that. So, again, that's where we want to move to. I know. I'm sorry. I was trying to enlarge it. That's all. There. I'll go back. All right, I'm going to introduce Alan Minoyan now, our Economic Development Director. I'll move it back.
Okay, let's, whoop. Oh boy, now it's, okay, there we go, cool. All right. First of all, I don't need this. Okay. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Minoyan. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development for the town of Ayer. I'm going to do something a little different here to wrap it up, and I'm sure you'll all be supportive and pleased with it, because it's going to go fast. Very atypical, yes. Okay. What we're going to do, just before I say that, there will be no figures, there'll be no words, it'll be all visual. This is a Pecha Kucha presentation. Pecha Kucha, 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide. I only have 20 seconds to whatever I'm going to say for each slide. This will be 480 seconds. Right? Dig it. Okay. You ready? You ready for it? Now, the trick, though, is, Alicia, now who's going to... Someone out there, and guys, have fun, torture me. That's always fun. And literally, if you can keep saying 20, and you're going to click, Janet, no matter what. You're advancing. All right? All right? We're going to take a shot at this? All right. We're going to go. All right. We start. The greatest gift New England gave to the world is this. This is the compact, mixed-use, traditional development pattern that is New England. Why the whole world loves coming to New England to visit here, to live here, and they try to, is that it? Go, 20. This is the rural to urban transect. What we're discussing here tonight is not if we need more, turn that damn thing off. It's not if we, it's not if we need more development. Where will it take place? What is the location of it? Here is the urban to rural transect. Rural all the way into downtown. This is to be our guide where we to develop. If you develop out here, it's going to cost you in many, many ways. Is that it? Did I do, was that even 20? Oh, look at that. This is, folks, those of us that do new urbanist planning, this is the rural to urban transect. This is out like in the hinterlands, right, of Ayer, up in the beautiful woodlands. And oh my God, okay. And as you get closer into downtown, what you want to do, folks, you want to channel your growth and development into downtown, where the roads are, where the infrastructure is, where the cost is less, and where it's much cooler and fun to live. Go. All right, here is Ayer. Here is here, and you see that traditional compact, it's there. We have the bones, all New England towns do. Here's the downtown, and as you get further out, less. What we've been doing, unfortunately, though, for the last decade, which they've all proved, is we're developing out in the lands where people say we shouldn't, and that's going to cost us. Why not? Panther Place, here's just an example, all right? And of course, this is happening right across from the high school, right? We know it. Here is a classic example. Hopefully, I'll say this with all due respect, probably the last of its kind, and it should be in Ayer. A good old suburban cul-de-sac neighborhood. We're going to go in, we're going to clear the forest, the meadows, we're going to plow a road down there, and we're going to stick a few single-family homes. Oh, it's going to cost the taxpayers. Here's the great road. That was once a forest, open land, natural habitat. Now there's the road being punched in. That road is going to be massive. That road now, a neighborhood, has to be plowed, has to be sanded, it has to be monitored by the police department, fire department. It's sprawling outward. We have to build new infrastructure. And I guarantee you 20 years from now, when that whole road goes to hell and has to be rebuilt, it's not the developer that's going to pay for it, it's all of you. And the taxes generated from those few houses will never cover the cost of that road, but it's their private road. Same thing here out on Pleasant Street Extension. The mass of asphalt, the forest cleared out the wetland, and a few houses out there, single-family homes. What a waste of valuable, precious air land that we have so little of, really to provide housing for very few people. And again, the cost of this road to you all the taxpayers through time will never carry itself. Go. Believe it or not, this is the corner of Main and Park Street. If I was standing sort of right here at the Subway restaurant, right? This is where Santander Bank is right now, right there on the corner. This is our form-based code we did for downtown. This is saying, we wrote a zoning code to say, here is what prescriptively, the people say, this is where we want to see the mixed-use development and growth in the downtown. You can walk on it. You don't have to build a new road. The road's there. You don't have to build new infrastructure. It's there. Where did we start doing this? Here's, my God, now what? 5 years ago, we said, let's do a visioning day. Let's transform West Main Street, the corridor out there, which we all know. Nothing was going on out there. And again, waste of land. Here at the very gateway of Devon's and everything happening, we wrote the West Air Village form-based code. All of us adopted a town meeting, and we are going forward now saying, this is where you channel the great mixed-use development and residential. And we got a $3 million grant, rebuilt all the infrastructure. Ready to go. Bring it on, developers. Here is smart growth principles, everything we've been talking about, right? What folks want. Neighborhood collaboration, mixed land use, compact building design, various housing options, walkable neighborhoods, attractive, meaning you design it well together, preserve farmland and natural resources, direct the development, channel where you want it, not where the developer wants it, where you want it, the taxpayers and the future generations, transportation choices, cost effective. This is what we're doing with our planning and development. Now, finally, the 10 sustainable development principles of Massachusetts. This is what guides everything we do. Concentrate development and mixed uses. Well, there's downtown and there's the model. Every new development really should be done, again, based on concentrate that development, mix the uses. It makes for vibrant, wonderful places. Okay. Advance equity. Here's the other side of Main Street, right? Out back on the rail yard. Pretty much abandoned. We need to work with the neighbors, the people that live in these neighborhoods, and start addressing the infrastructure needs, start doing infill housing, and really it being guided by the people that live here. All right? There's a reason poor people live very close to railroad tracks and old environmental contaminated sites, and we need to advance equity where folks live. Hey, make efficient decisions. How did we do that? You all passed and adopted form-based codes. There's our big tour from many years ago. There's the regulating plan. We did tours out and turned it on. Hey, there's our visual preference survey we did for building types for the code. There's Jonathan Krantz right there, and there's a much younger Ken Diskin from a few years ago, right? We did this together. Why? So we have a prescriptive code. You don't have to wonder as a developer, what do you want me to do? You know exactly what we want because we did it prescriptively with the code. Protect land and ecosystems. All I have heard this year from folks on Facebook and the community things is, right, what are they saying? Stop cutting down the forest. Stop consuming the land that's left. Leave some habitat, for goodness sakes. Well, this is what would, and out here, folks, all this. I assure you, developers, and by the way, Stratton Hill's going to go that way. It should, all right, we'll leave it at that. Can we go back? Did we go one? I'm sorry, yes, okay, well, okay, yeah, there we go. Use natural resources wisely. This is Curly Circle, fairly new development that was done as a cluster subdivision or open space, right, subdivision. This was a good model in many ways because what did it do? By doing that compact development a little bit closer, you preserved all the environmental woodlands, wetlands around it. This is a good example of using it wisely. Too much pavement though, again, folks. Way too much pavement and massively wide roads. Expand housing opportunities. How do you do that from like what we're doing? Well, you take this, what was the West Main Street corridor, where no one would develop or build housing. No one would even think of really, want to live. And this is what we've done to it, right? All new infrastructure, new water lines, sewer lines, sidewalk systems, crosswalks, on-street parking, along with the new form-based code we've done out there. Here, develop housing. We've created the conditions, the opportunity is now for the developer and for folks. Provide transportation choice. Ayer is a very auto-centric community. We really don't have the density, we don't have a full-time bus service, but there's Jeff Tillotson right there, by the way. There he is in that yellow shirt, right? Right out on the rail trail. Guys, we got to design all our developments for cycling, biking, and understanding the new generation of people are into this. Maybe our generation wasn't, they are. And then the MART shuttle. We don't have our own, buses, but we gotta work with MART to expand that shuttle. Increase job and business opportunities. When you have a great community of a lot of people, and what Alicia was saying, a diverse community, then we can attract, that's what I do, industrial development. Here's Catania Oils. What did they do the past year? They did a massive multi-million-dollar expansion of that plant. We're staying. But we need this is 3 shifts. We need the folks living here that then can drive easily. Instead of commuting an hour, you're right here on a great world-class firm, but we need the housing, so we have the labor force. By the way, if Catania Oils goes, you watch your residential tax rate go through the roof. We got to protect them. Promote clean energy. I don't know if Dan Van Schouw, there's Dan. Dan in DPW, right on Dan. Electric charging stations, right on Park Street, okay? More people need to know about it, and we need to embrace, I know a lot of people don't, electric cars, yes. Even me, I'm even ready, man. I'm ready. My next car is going to be electric. I'm ready to do it, Plan regionally, finally. We hate this in New England. We hate regional, because our town, you see the people over in that town, they're nothing like us. And we don't plan regionally in New England. It's a cultural thing, but we got to start getting hip to it. There's a little Ayer right there. And here's our region. It's a great historic map. Everything we do, we have to start thinking regionally, especially with Devens. What's happening at Devens right now has everything to do with the future of Ayer. Boom, Pecha Kucha. Thank you.
I got to get taller. All right. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you very much, Ron and Jeff and Alicia. Really appreciate that. And now let's go ahead, and we're going to do a breakout session. Again, we've got questions on the sheet. What I'd like is like at least 6 people to a group. Move your chairs. I think we could probably
Probably one-word answers, and then low tax rate.
That's you at the staging thing prior to the,
Set next to it.
yes, that's right.
haven't gone down. It has nothing to do with aging. Should rename it to the Council on Staying Young.
Okay, I'm not that.
Congratulations on getting on the team. I was happy.
Fully funded, so that's.
I'm going to keep everybody in your little groups, all right, if you want to. All right, so you guys can stay there because what I want somebody in each one of the groups sort of to give a recap of the questions and answers. All right, so seeing that, I want to pick on you guys first. Jeff, someone inside your group want to give us what's the benefits of living?
So I was the scribe, and no one has a chance, so it's going to have to be me.
All right, if you guys really want, yeah, so you can see Jeff.
I hope I get what you said written down. Do you want all the benefits? We got quite a lot. So the benefits of living in Ayer: a strong government team. It's small enough to have a sense of who your neighbors are here in Ayer. We rail trail, recreation opportunities, hiking trails. Pine Meadow was called out as a particular one. This is an interesting one, and I don't think we ever think about this. We have a full-time public safety. We have full-time police. We have full-time fire. That's kind of unique in this area, if you think about it. You don't have to go very far to see a shuttered police department at night from here. Also, well-staffed with compassionate and good people, both the fire and the police. Good, strong school system. We've got the train. That took a while to come up with. We've got the train. A very low crime rate. We're centrally located. When you get to think about it, Boston, Worcester, even New Hampshire, Maine, you can jump in the car, get on 495, get on Route 2. You can get places from here. And I want to add this, and it's a great place to come back to at night. Who thinks about our medical center or our hospital as being an important part of the community? It's unique to us, if you think about it. We've got some great assisted living centers and really active senior group down at the COA. They got stuff going on all day long, every day. Did I forget anything? You want to jump in with anything else? Oh, and a phenomenal clerk. Actually, that's first on the list.
You got it. Awesome. All right. Who from this group wants to come on up? Ron?
I have an hour and a half of information. I'll put it into 5 minutes, if I can read my own writing. We answered all 4 questions. Benefits of living in Ayer, some you've already heard from Jeff, but low tax rate, train, natural resources, meaning parks and that type of thing, I guess. Safe neighborhoods, schools, lots of restaurants, lots of things to do downtown, and an active town government. That would be number 1. Number 2, what types of housing does Ayer need? We came up with 3 different, besides what we're already getting, smaller houses. The 750 square foot rule in Ayer is the reason that you don't have tiny houses. You can't build them in Ayer. And so it becomes very difficult to have smaller houses, which brings down costs. Handicapped access, and not only for handicapped people, but also senior access for the type, the type of housing, to have that in the housing. And the unusual one we had was more mobile homes, or at least that type of housing. Number 3, considerations about future development in Ayer. More density downtown. Again, development downtown is restricted by that parking regulation. Access to parking, access to transportation. This is more parking and more access to transportation. More multifamily housing, more diverse pricing. And our last one on number 3 was an interesting one. On the transportation side, have rental car lots where you can pick up a car and drop it off and put it back later, just like the bicycles that you see in Somerville and Cambridge. So that's an unusual. I think I'll do one of those. Actually, why not? We have a vacant lot where the used car dealer was. That's true. Be good there. We'll call it the old used car lot. Number 4, that's called recycling. Where should we encourage new housing developments? Mostly we talked about should be in downtown, seeing there's plenty of places to build in downtown that have been vacant for years. Again, going back to the parking regulation. Have I said that enough? And also restructuring the in-law law in town, or the zoning in town, would be helpful. That's it. I'll go behind you.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you, Ron. Let me go ahead and, Ken, do you want to come on up and speak to about your group, please?
I'll come up, but they pretty much covered everything. Got aced out by the other 2 people. So we got a little bit off on a tangent because we ended up concentrating on some actual work that was potentially going on in town and got into a little tangent about environmental issues of the town. So, but in the first category, we again mentioned the fact that we need to keep the diversity in the town. And that's not just diversity of housing, but we want to keep diversity, as everyone else has mentioned, of the people and the population. And keep it, one of our comments of one of our members was made, it's a family town. I think that was kind of a thought that we haven't really mentioned, but we want to keep it a kind of a family town. Encourage the fact that it's diversity across age groups and families, as well as, the diversity of the housing styles. We also talked about walkability, that the town has an advantage because of its walkability. DPW has been great in the future, in any project that we've done to include sidewalks. Now we have a committee that talks about disabilities and talks about accessibility. Keep that thought going on every project that we do. So we have a walkability situation, we have an access situation. People can get to the apartments or houses or whatever the development might be. And then the same thought about the tax rate. We talked about the fact that we have the industrial and commercial tax rate, which is twice the residential rate, and keeps our town protected in a way for property owners who are residents that can, have a kind of a stable tax rate. So that was what we covered on item number 1. Again, the types of housing, we basically talked about the fact that we need all types of housing. I think we're all in agreement we need more affordable housing. We didn't talk about mobile homes, but that didn't come up, but low-income housing and all types of housing. In other words, it's a benefit to town to have expensive homes as well as moderate income homes as well as low-income homes, so we keep that diversity across the board. The same item on future development, we came to the same conclusion. We're looking at downtown. We need to increase density. And Alan and others have eloquently mentioned that we have other issues there that are regarding parking. We have a question, how do we create a better parking situation so we can get the residences downtown and make parking a little bit easier, and we can cover that in the future. And lastly, what should we encourage? Where should we encourage new housing? In the same basic answer we talked about, what you guys talked about, which is downtown more or less, or the West Main Street area, areas that have been zoned to increase density and help get diversion, have a cross section of housing types mixed in with mixed uses with other retail and whatnot. So that's what we had. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jeff, do you want to continue with your number 2 and number 3 and number 4 and see if there's anything else? Please.
So many of these were already mentioned, so let me kind of cherry pick the list if I can. I mean, the first response is what type of housing do we need? All of it. was the first response. But there's a need for over 55 housing for people who want to get out of the big house but still stay in the community. Co-housing opportunities. We know of ones that are in Acton and over in Littleton. That's where you live in a place, but you have a common place to eat and stuff like that. Kind of like dormitories in college, but less car-centric is what I jotted down, but where people can get to what they need without relying upon a car. And that also goes into amenities near housing. Again, West Main Street makes sense. Park Street makes sense because we got Shop and Save and other opportunities for people so they don't have to get in the car to go do something. So that would be number 2. Considerations. Carrying capacity of our natural resources is what I wrote down, which is basically the pressure of housing and the pressure of people on what makes Ayer really beautiful to us. Mr. Diskin talks about walking. Yeah, we have walkable streets, but we got great walking trails in this town, and we don't want to lose that. Considerations about our water system. We're all living with PFAS and water restrictions, not because of PFAS, but just water restrictions in general. We got to keep thinking about that going forward. How climate change is affecting us and what we can do in building resilience. Industrial use of water. It's a large use of our water, but it also, as Mr. Diskin pointed out, their tax rate's high, number 1. Number 2, they pay us a lot of money for their water. So they contribute to the quality of our lives that way. Some conversations about alternate stormwater infrastructure, porous pavement, pavers. I jotted one down, they don't know about it, but on-site groundwater retention. And we're at the planning board, we're starting to see this. Instead of letting the water roll off somewhere else, keep it here. And then I jotted down funnel development to the right areas, and I think the right areas are probably who thought about it. We were moving fast. Would be the West Main, the downtown, the areas we've done form-based code on and stuff like that. And not a lot of notes here. You should all be happy. Yeah, we're West Main, Payne Street, Park Street. We talked a little bit about the cost of mitigation. We still have some some contaminated sites out on West Main. And then just had a conversation. We were lucky. Superintendent Von Skalkwyk was there, and we got to talk about water and sewer. But otherwise, it was nice to hear the present state of where it is and where it's going also. Thanks.
Excellent. This sounds really good because this is, guys, for our panel, all right, gives you something to think about as you're getting all this feedback. All right? Yes, Susan.
I realize a very important part is our park and recreation, what they do in the diverse programs and how much that they do, that board and the directors.
That's true. I mean, yeah.
That was mentioned, but that's a huge part of public safety is that they do so much in the community. So I want to make sure that
That's going to be listed.
also the families and the children and all the opportunities and programs for them as well
Yeah.
throughout the town.
Yep, it's true. Yep, it's definitely there, and it's it's underneath our resources as well. So, but I agree about that. All right, so like I said, for our panel of speakers, hold on a second. I got my little notes over here. I got to put this down. And to make it a little bit easier, because I know that we're running, short on time. I know we're probably, again, I say 8 o'clock, but we do want, like I said, there's no questions that have been written down for the panel. But what I want to do is ask the members of the panel if they might be able to come up front here or to the microphone there, just because we're getting this taped as well as this way here, everybody can hear everybody. So as I'm going ahead and, hold on a second, I'm going to introduce them as they come forward. Danny, you're first. Okay. We've got Danny, who is, and if you want to bring the chairs up front here, make it a little bit easier. All right. Who's our Ayer Town planner. He came in from Salisbury. All right, and we are very lucky to have him. And he started in July. So with that, we've been giving him a lot of things to do. Okay, and keep himself busy. The next that I'd like to invite is Dan Van Scalwick, all right, who is our town DPW director. And with that, he was our town engineer, and he got promoted, and now he's wondering why he took it. No, never mind. So with that, I want to go ahead and then introduce Phil Gaffey, who happens to be our representative from the neighborhood of affordable housing. You've heard the name Noah. All right, he's going to help us build an ark over on Fitchburg Road, and with that, he is what we would consider a very friendly 40B coming into our neighborhood. So with that, and then we have Bob France, who happens to be from Senate Construction. Bob is a local resident who we have been very lucky to go ahead and have him build other affordable units. The Nutting building is one of them that has affordable apartments within there. So what I want to do is, we invited these 4 individuals because of the role that they play, within creating or maintaining the housing within the town. So I just want to make sure, again, we just focus on the future of housing in Ayer. But one other thing that I want to point out is, with the preferences and the feedback that you guys have received, it's amazing on how people really enjoyed, had the green dots for the Nutting building, for the Moore building, I'm trying to think, and then the Central Ave had all the red dots, the condominiums that are there, but could be because maybe the landscaping, like if you go ahead and put trees around it and everything, it may be a different type of format. So with that, what I'd like you to do is take the feedback that you received, and like say from that housing preference, and in about a minute, give us a little what you think.
Start with me?
I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to live in and own the Fletcher building, which has been a great benefit to both my wife and I. My wife's a teacher in Page Hilltop, and she's 1 mile from her school. I've encouraged her to walk there, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. I happen to be 10 minutes from my office as well, so we're the benefactor of 7 restaurants within 2 blocks of our home. So that being said, the Fletcher building's a quintessential New England building in a town where I understood at some point used to be the financial center of this region. And the picture that I have of the Fletcher building back in the 1800s shows horse and carriage drawn railway. So, and I understand that infrastructure was all the way down Main Street and ran to Lowell, from what I gather. So, maybe we should be reverting back a little bit to that kind of, thought and process. So that being said, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the area. I think the biggest challenges, as we've talked about, are the parking restrictions. It was brought up in our group that, the requirement for 750 square feet is, it's a little generous. I know that our apartments are 650 square feet, and I think they're good accommodations for a couple. So that's that. Another good point that was brought up in our group was no, housing, not parking. Being able to put subsequent or supplemental housing, what do you call it? Accessory apartments, or I'm drawing a blank. In-law apartments, that's it. Yeah, in-law housing, and I've seen some units in my travels that are, accommodating 2 elderly couples. They're not that big. They're less than 650 square feet, but there's plenty of room for, plenty of accommodations for a couple to live, and they're handicap accessible. So anyways, I've done enough talking.
We're just going to move it on. Thank you. All right, here we go, Bill.
I think the last conversation about the dwelling are called, I think they're called ADUs now, accessory dwelling units, and I think I heard the governor say at her housing speech yesterday that those are not going to be by right throughout the Commonwealth. So watch that legislation. She can't impose that. She can recommend it to the legislature. So whatever you saw or see on TV these next couple of days, that $4 billion housing bond now goes before the legislature. So if you like things in it, I would advise you to talk to your legislators, Senate and representatives about how you think this is good or how you want something changed, that kind of thing. It's a really important time to weigh in, but I do know that I felt there were probably 150 people in housing. If I was 150th, 149 of them are experts, and I got to be there as well. But there are a lot of people who really know the business, help shape the law and the legislation. So and I'm sure your representatives in your town are paying attention to this. And I guess I want to compliment, what is it about the town? I think we've been welcome. My name is Phil Giffey. I work with NOAA, Neighborhood of Affordable Housing. We're from East Boston, but we do work in the region. We're doing a downtown development in Taunton right now. It's a historic deal. It's a challenge. The town has been very open. We've done things in North Andover, Webster, Carlisle, water and sewer. Don't ever want to do that again. Because you get stuck with a Title V thing, fix this, and all of a sudden, where's that money come from? Well, it comes out of our surplus cash. Anyway, I could keep talking, but I'll keep going on. It's a great town to be in. The town really, I would say, I'm not looking at something physical. What I feel is that people feel like this is the town, and they want to protect it, and they want to build it, or you do. That's what I'm hearing for the large part. All the other things, they sort of fall into place because the town and your paid staff that you benefit from, I think, are here, and the other people benefit from people who want to retain this. I don't think I really ever heard towns talk about, I want diversity, I want more affordable housing. And when you voted last year at this time for CPA for $400,000 for what we call phase one of 106 unit development out on Fitchburg Road, that was unanimous. In another town we were at, we got denied $1.3 million for 42 units, and then we had to do work in town. The next year it turned around 305 to 6 or something like that. So it was a complete turnaround. But I have to compliment you and your community building for who you are, what you have, what you develop, and your own passion and knowledge of the laws, which give you the content of the town. It will be challenged the better, so-called better it gets, I predict, because I've seen it in East Boston. Should I stop, or you want me to keep talking? Well, I think that's where it all starts. You've got a quality center, and it's here, in addition to up here, and that all the other stuff that you're putting down flows to your website, the housing production plan, everything else. So I would say that.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you.
All right, I'll try to be brief. I'm Dan Van Scalquick, the DPW director in Ayer, and I've been here over 9 years now. I used to be town engineer, so I'm very familiar with the town. If you name a road, I'll tell you right where it is. So anyways, one of the things that was spoken about was natural resources, and so Public Works has a lot to do with that. And so speaking kind of from a stormwater resiliency end, the town is moving forward with, in a positive way, with the MVP program. The town's a part of. It's a state program for resilient building and infrastructure, and the path you look forward, and planning. Really, planning is the key to it. As part of that plan, the town did complete a stormwater asset management plan, so the town has a better handle of what stormwater assets it has and how to handle those and prioritize and be a proactive town to have a better stormwater system, which in turn has a better water system, water bodies in town if you've got better stormwater. Excuse me. And then one thing, or I guess both water and sewer. So I think there's a lot of talk on water and sewer capacity. And we don't like being the water police. We wish we didn't have to have water bans, just like everyone else in town. But unfortunately, right now, we have an issue with the new PFAS treatment at our Grove Pond plant has really restricted that plant. It's basically down 43% of the capacity it had pre-PFAS. And so we have trouble some days, especially in the summer, keeping up with our demand. So if we didn't have PFAS and we were still running the way we were, we would have the proper capacity. It's about, our maximum capacity is about 3.76 million gallons per day. And that's on a max day. On a max day of demand right now, it's just under 3. And so the way we look at these, we do capacity planning, kind of stepping back. Minimum of every 5 years, we do water master plan. And so in that plan, we take into account population growth, any known future developments, such as 65 Fitchburg Road, that was in our latest master plan, and then past usage trends. So these are kind of, what are your water needs? What are your demands going to be? And then you look at your water supply. How much can we supply? And at the current state, that number I mentioned, 3.76 million gallons, is a maximum we could produce on a day. That's without the PFAS treatment, which has brought us down. So the maximum demand in this time frame is around just under 3 on a maximum day, and we're having trouble keeping up with that because of our restrictions. And we do this master planning out to the year 2040. And so when we get to the year 2040, that's about when the town, based on our projections, would be just under the 3.76 million gallon, about 0.13 million gallons under that. So currently we're working on looking for a new well source, and we have a new well source investigation going on off of Speck Pond, and hopefully that'll yield a new well we can put out there. So that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on with water, and I hope to get some information on the website available for that. I'll be real quick. You good? All right. Thank you, everyone.
I just want to make sure people have. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
So to touch on a couple things that have been raised tonight, the 750 square foot minimum, that's definitely something that the town, I believe, needs to look at and possibly remove out of the bylaw to allow for more affordable sized units, as well as the push for West Main Street to be developed, more density in that area with all the infrastructure already put in. That's going to definitely promote developers to come with everything already set up there. It's easy for them to just come in, build, and off they go. As well as the push for OSRDs, open space, residential developments, which will help increase density, but also promote the preservation of open space, forest, to avoid those clear cutting of 1 acre lots. This will condense it all, and it'll help retain all that open space that Ayer has. And then another thing that I think, as someone who's coming into this town new, that Ayer, I think, would need is something more of a over 55 developments for the seniors that are aging out of their house, that are bigger and want to downsize and not have to take care of so much space. This would allow for residents to downsize. There's none of the care, and it's over 55, so it's really maintained for people who are in the elderly population. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Danny. Okay. All right. I know that there are some questions that people have asked me, and such, but let me go ahead and have anybody here. If you have a question, to get it on the microphone, you've got to grab the microphone over here. Do people have any types of questions? All right. Ken? Yeah, that's the bad problem, so we can make sure that this all gets, you get videotaped.
Unfortunately, this might be a little bit of a depressing question for Phil. But since you are the newest, developer basically of that type of affordable housing that comes to town, can you let the group here know what you believe the approximate either cost per square foot is today to construct it, or what you think a unit cost itself? For instance, is an average unit of $400,000? Is it $300,000? Something like that. Do you have numbers like that?
I don't have the square foot. I'm sorry, I don't have the square foot number in my head. I do. The unit would be in our pro forma, which I don't have with me, but I do know that, units, the When I say pro forma, those are, let's say, the common agglomeration of numbers that we have to give to elected officials in the state to sort of say, this is what the guidelines permit. And it's hard to say, but units now are at least 500,000. And there may be less, a little bit less, and it depends on the acquisition it depends on a variety of things. What do you have to pay for the property?
Right.
Are there any environmental costs? Labor is relatively the same where you go. Interest rates are now much higher than they used to be. So if you start adding all those things up, it gets to be a lot higher than one wants. The state is now, they know that. So it's not like Ayer is inexpensive or any place is inexpensive, really. It just gets to be, that's the cost. And you also have, it isn't all in the public realm either. There's a lot of private money that comes, mostly of it's private money, frankly, because you sell the tax credits, which are authorized by the IRS for each state in the union. And every state gets an allocation of what they call tax credits or low-income housing tax credits or bonds. And then the state allocates them through an official system called QAP, and then they parcel those out, and they don't just give them all to Alicia because she's so good, or anybody else. They have to say, well, every town gets allocated depending on their population and who's doing what. So it's more than just here's the number. It gets to be what does it cost, and I think what I want to say is when we do these groundbreakings and things of this nature, you want the public to understand most of the money is private. It comes in from big banks or investors who use the tax credits developed during the Reagan administration in 1986. So they get a return on their investment. They actually own the property. It's a limited liability corporation. It's NOAA, which we're responsible for as a general partner for managing it and filling out all the wonderful forms we have to fill out all the time, and make sure all the tenancies are perfect, and I don't fill out anything out, and nobody goes to Janet and says, I need somebody in this unit now. You can't do that. So it has to be affirmatively marketed. You have to meet all these guidelines. So it's a long answer to your question, but it's an opportunity for me to say these are very complicated things, but most of the money is private. The public puts up the dollars to sort of incent this kind of development one way or the other, but the cost per unit, whether it's public or private, is in that particular range.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got Lori Nearing.
Thank you. One thing that didn't come up tonight is if during the Devon's decisions, if we get portions of Devon's back, we probably will. Are we looking into the future, and maybe this is for other people as well, into what we could be doing with Devon's and considering it becoming any of the number of things we've been discussing about needed housing, the 55 and over, the low-income housing? Are we looking at that while we're doing all this other sort of look?
So I know there is a Devon's committee that's put together that's going to be studying the effects of Devon's. I have not been I'm not a part of those committees. Actually, I think Jeff, wherever Jeff is, and he would actually be able to speak on this better than I would.
There's a really long answer because the resolution has to happen by 2033. And the short answer is the Ayer Devon's committee that was constituted before stopped, and it's just been reconstituted, so we've had 3 meetings. So what's happening now is we're starting to quite figure out what the next steps are. I think I can say honestly, and if you watch the videos of the meetings, I believe they're videoed, what you'll see is instead of looking at boundaries or what's currently there, a large part of the conversation right now is what communities are in Devon's and how does the community feel of a town like Ayer and an area like Devon's remain going forward. The elephant in the room is Vicksburg Square. 89% or 90%, some crazy number is in Ayer traditional boundaries. Some small amount is in Harvard. Along that town line is a county line. So it's a challenging thing to think about. It's almost like you don't want to think about the problem yet, but we got a lot of really good people working on it. I did go to the Devon's Framework Committee that Janice Livingston sits on for the town of Ayer, and the idea was floated the other day to just, Harvard, give Ayer Vicksburg, we'll solve the problem. So they're beginning to think about that. Every single type of housing, every single type of possible use for industrial or commercial is on the table. Where 3 or 4 generations from when people lived there, worked there, and it was a military base, and people are starting to look at it as opportunities going forward with a look over the shoulder to the past, as opposed to looking backwards, kind of backing into the future, and that's my characterization of it. So there's a lot of open-minded people thinking about it right now. It's not an easy problem. And Harvard's done an amazing job on it. You watch their meetings, it's great. They've really quantified it. Shirley's starting to come up to speed. But it's going to be a project. And accessory dwelling units are available by right all over Ayer. We beat the state to it. We beat the state to OSRD, we beat the state to foreign base, and I'm very proud of the planning. And those will come. By the way, accessory ADUs, if you want your kids to move on your property and live there, and you live there, you can do it anywhere in town.
All right. Not only with accessory dwelling units, I want to go ahead and have you address how much space we've saved with OSRD, which is the open space residential development.
Space?
Yeah, how much land have...
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know I know the projects that are that are already been approved, but I don't know it off the top of my head, the calculations on that. But to touch on the accessory dwelling units, the 750 minimum is what I think is the big barrier on getting those accessory dwelling units approved because of the way the calculation works. I think once we remove that, it's going to allow for people to actually be more people will be able to actually get those approved. It's that 25% of the building square footage, and that's such a large number. You need to make that work, especially with the 750 being a minimum. So it's really, really hard to actually make that one work. And so I think once we remove that, it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Ruth? Be careful.
It's really not a question, it's sort of a comment. One thing I've noticed tonight is that what we haven't discussed is housing for the homeless that are living out in the woods in the back or living down by the railroad tracks. That's something that I know it might mean a whole nother thing to talk about, and it's probably the hardest one of everything to talk about because of the people type thing, but we didn't talk about it. And I guess it goes back to when I was a teenager. My parents took me to town meeting here in Ayer, and we voted that the 50 acres that the high school now sits on, which had been given to the town in perpetuity for the poor, and we voted that that would become high school ground because we didn't have any poor anymore. So I think in a way our town owes it to the homeless that we do something for them. And as individuals, I think we should do something for them too.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and definitely take that under advisement. One thing that I do again emphasize is it takes a lot more than just a house. So you need all the resources and everything, and that's why we branch off to the groups that get the money, that have those resources and everything, because I know our Father's House closed up, but these are places that already have all that in the works. So with that, it's a lot more than just housing. But one of the conversations we brought up was co-housing. One of the other conversations is, we've got the congregate that's down over at the Housing Authority. So with that, there are places where there's opportunities, and that's where we need to go ahead and focus in on, so that they have an address. All right, we understand that many of them, all they want is, a place, to put, to be able to put their head, at nighttime. So understand that. So yeah, we'll put that on, on one of the feedback. Thank you, Ruth. You got it. All right. Anybody else for conversation, questions? All right. I do have. Hold on. One thing I do want to ask you while I do the slide, Danny, if you can just say the project, because people are talking about the trees being all, taken down, but if you can talk about the projects that a lot of the open space has been saved, I would appreciate that.
Yes, so there are a couple of projects that we have for open space residential developments. One that we talked about that Alan actually spoke about was Curly Circle, which is on right off Littleton Road. That project, they definitely condensed the development, shortened the road, which saved a large piece of open space in the back. There is also Panther Place, that's also in OSRD, so that one has also designated open space that goes along with that, and there's connections for trails back there. And typically, trails are going to be like a main thing in a lot of these OSRDs. It's to really promote that open space in the back and actually have people use it. Stratton Hill is another one that is considered an OSRD as well. There's going to be, that one has a proposal of about 136 acres of open space. So that's a very large open space parcel. Trying to think of what other ones we had. Shaker Mill Pond, yes, that one is also, they've actually just finished that one, so they're going to be looking to close that out, and that has another large piece of open space with trails in the back as well.
That's great, because again, I want people to know that, again, we did this back in 2019, and we've moved forward on trying to make sure that we're listening and that, we're protecting some of the environment. All right, again, just to recap, this is what we went through, and I want to just end with this because I wanted to say thank you very much, everybody, all of you for, for being part of the panel, and the volunteers helping out. Woo, we rock. Okay, you got an opportunity now to move forward. So move forward, grab a cookie. Yes? No, I couldn't do it without you guys. All right, take some cookies if there's any cookies that are left, because I don't want to take them to the station. All right, but again, thank you. And Trevor, thank you with your group. I really do appreciate everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy the cool weather.